Let the Bearcats offense draw you in, but stick around for a defense that's going to force turnovers like it did in Stillwater.
You are Locked On Bearcats, your daily podcast on the Cincinnati Bearcats, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into Locked On Bearcats. My name is Jeff Carr, and I'm all Cincinnati all the time. I've been a season ticket holder for Bearcats football for 7 seasons now, and I've worked in multiple media relations departments and some university athletic departments, and I'm glad that you're alongside me here today. Locked On Bearcats is part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team, your Bearcats, every single day, and this is the post-game show. Bearcats just got done walloping on the Oklahoma State Cowboys, 49-17. And yes, a big part of that was an amazing offense that was executing perfectly in the first half, made some key plays in the second half to keep their foot on the gas pedal and make sure that this game ended the way that it did. But they would not have covered had it not been for their defense being super opportunistic with some turnovers in this game. Finally, right? Finally forcing some turnovers. So we're going to get into all of that. Plus, there was a play that really made sure that the Bearcats got this dominant performance, and it happened in the fourth quarter, all thanks to Jeff Caldwell. We're going to get to all of that here on this Locked On Bearcats post-game show. I want to do this at the end of every game on Saturdays. Finally kind of decided on a format here. As you guys know, I've been doing Locked On Bearcats for a few weeks now. Going to do a short post-game show, and then we'll be with you Monday through Friday all throughout the week, recapping the previous game, getting into the next game, getting into some basketball season starting. And boy, we got a lot to talk about with that as the week gets along, because they had a pretty nice first scrimmage there against Michigan, and they'll have a scrimmage coming up against Arkansas next Friday as well. But this is all about football because the Bearcats just beat up on Oklahoma State. That was a statement kind of performance, something that we had said they needed to make, because Oklahoma State is in a bad way. They fired their coach. They're down 2 quarterbacks, not one, but 2 quarterbacks. There's so many different things. There's a bunch of guys that are, sitting and getting ready to transfer, and they're not playing right now. So the roster's in flux. And for much of the first half, the offense did its job and the defense did that thing where it kind of kept Oklahoma State at bay. But there were definitely moments where you're just like, is this going to work? But then in the second half, it did exactly what it needed to do. Matthew McDoom with a 100-yard pick six, the longest interception return in school history, or at least in school history since 1958. I think it's period, but oddly enough, that one came against Oklahoma State as well. But yeah, longest interception return in the history of the school. And Matthew McDoom, dude is just so fast, right? That pick, and he was able to get away from everybody, and there was no chance to catch him. But the fact that that's the first interception of the year, all right, let's open the floodgates here, because this defense is very conservative, lays back in its zone, forces the other team to make mistakes. And Oklahoma State did that. The second turnover that the Bearcats got was solely because the center had a horrible snap in shotgun back to their quarterback, and it just kept going past him, and Logan Wilson was able to grab it as both the quarterback and I think it was Jalen Hunt. They tried to fall on it together. Neither one of them could get a hold of it, and then Logan Wilson just come up and pick it up, and he's like, yeah, that's mine now. That was great to see, but the opportunities that were taken advantage of finally that we haven't seen all year. Like, the defense had just done the whole bend but don't break thing, and you just kind of hope they didn't give up that many points. For once, the bend but don't break included opportunistic, great plays in opportunistic positions. And if they can do that, that's where I'm not trying to tell you that the defense is good. The defense is flawed. But if they can take advantage of that avenue and be opportunistic, that's where this defense can really be a factor. for the Bearcats moving forward, because I think that all of us sitting here right now after a 49-17 win against Oklahoma State on the road that was homecoming day for Oklahoma State, and the Bearcats just boat raced them. We're all kind of wondering how far this can go, because now the Bearcats are bowl eligible. They're going to play some postseason football for the first time in 3 years. And they're going to probably move up in the rankings. There were a couple of teams ahead of them that lost. So there's a chance that they could be ranked even higher when Baylor gets here for Bearcats homecoming next Saturday. But all of that is to be said, like, we're thinking about bigger things now. Can the Bearcats compete for a Big 12 championship? If they're going to, they've got to be opportunistic like that. And you can give me all of the stuff. Sam Jackson V was a wide receiver 2 weeks ago. He wasn't supposed to be quarterback and all this other stuff. Fine. Take advantage of it. Because quite honestly, for 3 quarters, it looked like they weren't going to do that. Anytime he scrambled, he was gashing them. Anytime he threw the ball, I mean, he was only 11 for 19. He didn't throw the ball a lot. Because quite frankly, Rodney Fields, the Oklahoma State running back, was just absolutely dominating this game on their offensive side of the ball. But when he made mistakes, the Bearcats capitalized. They haven't done that yet this year and forced turnovers like they did tonight. And that is so huge for me. And that's the reason, like, we're going to talk about the offense in a minute, but I had to lead with this defense because the defense there's a lot of questions surrounding Tyson Vite's game plan of this whole 3-3-5, and you set back and you just let everything happen in front of you. And eventually the other team's going to make a mistake, drop a ball or something. And then you're going to force them to punt. It's not real sexy. That's not real fun to watch if you know some good defense. But if the Bearcats can add in the ability to jump in front of a ball every now and then, force a turnover here and there, and heck, maybe score off that turnover like Matthew McDoom did, then you can really start to believe in what this defensive game plan is. And that's going to be the difference, because this offense at one time, it's going to struggle. Down the stretch here, the rest of this season, the Bearcats are facing some tough Big 12 defenses. I mean, Baylor's not the best defense, but like, you've got Utah at Utah in a couple of weeks. Utah's really good on defense. And I know that BYU just laid a couple of touchdowns on them in the Holy War game last night. But at the same time, like, I don't feel like you can just rely on scoring 30 or 40 points every week out for the rest of the year and say that's how this team's going to do it. There's going to be a game or two that they might score, 24 points. And then what happens? How do you win that ball game? It's going to be through your defense just making a couple of opportune plays. I'm not saying this defense is going to sit there and hold a team to under 200 yards or something like that. This is not that kind of defense. And again, they got destroyed in time of possession and all this other stuff. That doesn't matter with the way that the offense can be very explosive, and when you add in opportunistic plays that the defense can make. That's going to be the big difference with this team, being fun and a little bit of a dark horse to win the Big 12 or a legitimate contender. Because I think they're right there, man. They are right there. And we definitely discounted that coming into the season. We were just hoping that this Bearcats football team would be fun and bowl eligible. Well, they've already accomplished both of those things to this point. There's much more in front of them. And opportunistic defense is going to be a huge part of that. But I know this team's going to get everywhere with that offense. And they showed why in the first half against Oklahoma State. FanDuel has some updated odds for the Big 12 champion after week 8, and the Bearcats are 4th. They actually fell back one, but there's a clear top 4. The Bearcats currently set at 7-1 to win the Big 12. Right ahead of them are BYU at 6-1, Arizona State at plus 380, and Texas Tech at plus 100. After Arizona State beat Texas Tech, that kind of threw everything into motion there, but they still have Texas Tech favored to win the Big 12. I'm going to sprinkle a little bit over on the Bearcats, though, 7-1. The next team below the Bearcats, Utah, at 18-1. That's over on FanDuel. New users can place a $5 wager, and if it wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets. That's over at FanDuel.com. Download the app today. Today's podcast is also brought to you by Quo, formerly known as OpenPhone. One of the tools that help make a huge difference for business owners is Quo. It's the same great business phone system that you've heard me talk about before, just with a new name. And here's why it matters. Every missed call is money left on the table. When every customer conversation counts, you need a phone system that keeps you connected 24/7. Quo is the #1 business phone system that streamlines customer communications. It works right through an app on your phone or your computer, so there's no more carrying around 2 phones or relying on a landline. See why over 90,000 businesses trust Quo, formerly known as OpenPhone. Get started for free and get 20% off your first 6 months at quo.com/lockedoncollege. That's QUO.com/lockedoncollege. And if you've got an existing number with another service, Quo will port it over at no extra charge. Quo, no missed calls, no missed customers. And most people can't name all of their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, or investments. And when you don't have the full picture like that, you can be leaving money on the table. That's where Monarch comes in. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that helps to bring together your entire financial life on one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or on your phone. Monarch is built for people with busy lives. If you've put off organizing your finances, Monarch is for you. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all of your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization on your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. Don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with the code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE. I invite you to make Locked On Bearcats part of your everyday routine. You can do so by hitting that subscribe button right here on YouTube or on your favorite podcast app. Like I mentioned, we'll be with you all throughout the week and giving you post-game shows after the game and things like that. Talking Bearcats every single day. I loved how this offense played. And I mentioned, bowl eligible and all this other stuff. Brendan Sorsby had a great quote that I want to read to you. After the game, he was asked, about, becoming bowl eligible, how will they celebrate it, all this other stuff. He said, quote, "We will celebrate being bowl eligible until tomorrow. We have to find a way to keep stacking days. Our guys aren't satisfied, though. We have to be at our best 1 week at a time. At the end of the day, our goal is to be in Dallas playing for a Big 12 championship." And if you remember one of my early episodes, I had Dan Hort on, and Dan had mentioned that ever since Higher Ground, ever since training camp for the Bearcats, they have said Dallas is the goal. And where those first 2 seasons of Scott Satterfield's tenure kind of are burned into the back of our mind of like, okay, just, have a winning record, make it to a bowl, something like that. And I think we'll be happy as a fan base. Now it's maybe time for us to change our expectations as well, because when you watch this offense, it feels as though there might be some times where they struggle, but more often than not, between the way that Scott Satterfield's calling games these days and between the way that Brendan Sorsby is executing his game plan these days, kind of feels like you can trust everything that they're doing. I mean, this game, they didn't actually run the ball as well as they had been. Now, they averaged 5 yards a carry, which is still great, but they kind of abandoned the run there for a bit. There was a lot more passes in this way. You had 31 carries to 29 pass attempts, so technically more carries, but a lot of that came there at the end in garbage time whenever you had Manny Covey taking some carries and you had, a carry from Caffey and Anderson and things like that toward the end. This was mostly about how Brendan Sorsby threw the ball. And he did a pretty good job. There were a couple of deep throws that I felt like he overthrew and he kind of missed an opportunity for. So we didn't see the out and out dominant passing game, but man, when he needed to make a throw, He did. And there was no more evidence of that than on 3rd and 16 in the fourth quarter at midfield. And you're thinking, boy, what are they going to do here if they're conservative and they punt the ball? Because at this point, they were only up. Oh, what was it? It was 20. I think it was 28-17. And so you're thinking, if you're conservative here and if Oklahoma State gets a score, like your brain starts doing the Cincinnati sports thing, right? Like if you've been a Cincinnati sports fan for as long as I have, you know what that thing is. You know that no matter all of the things that are going against Oklahoma State, there's still that possibility that they walk out of there winning 30-28. And so Brendan Sorsby uncorks this throw to Jeff Caldwell where he is just blanketed with coverage. This was a, look, we're throwing a jump ball to Jeff Caldwell and he's going to catch it or no one's going to catch it and then we'll just punt it. But we're not going to be conservative on this long 3rd down. And I was so happy that that was the play call. And I absolutely loved everything about the throw and the catch. Jeff Caldwell made an amazing play. And this was, was that, okay, he had 2 other catches in this game, but that was absolutely the most impactful one because that kept that drive going, which a couple plays later they scored a touchdown on. And then the drive after that is when they got the pick 6. And then the drive after that, they got the fumble and then they scored again. And it was bing, bang, boom. The 3rd quarter that we were worried about where the Bearcats didn't do anything. And Oklahoma State started to close the gap just a little bit. Got completely erased in just a couple of minutes. And I believe that this one catch from Jeff Caldwell was the turning point. I'm not saying it's the point that the Bearcats officially won the game, but it's the point that Oklahoma State officially lost it. There was nothing they could do after that play. It was a beautiful catch by Jeff Caldwell. And it was everything that the first half had set up. The first half, they were perfect on offense. There was nothing wrong with anything that they did in the first half. They ran the ball well. They passed the ball well. I mean, you saw some great plays. That fake option, I believe was Evan Pryor in the backfield with Sorsby, but he faked it to Pryor and then rolled out left with Cyrus Allen following him behind. And he was able to pitch option it to Cyrus Allen. And I mean, Cyrus Allen, he was running, obviously, but felt like he kind of just glided on into the end zone at that point. And you know why? That was a perfect play design. Because all of Oklahoma State was like, oh, look at this. He's either going to pitch it or he's going to hand it off to Pryor or he's going to keep it himself. And instead of doing that, he did keep it himself, but he went the other way. And pretty much 95% of Oklahoma State's defense was going to the right side. And so they had a couple of guys trail back to try and catch up to Sorsby and Allen, but there was no chance. That was just a beautiful play design. There was so much about this game that it seemed as though like you had these beautiful routes that cut through. Oklahoma State was running a very similar zone to what we see, Cincinnati running, but at the same time, they weren't doing it very well. And Brendan Sorsby was just carving them up, man. 20 for 29. What a day. And 3 touchdowns, no picks again. There were only I want to say there might have been 2 passes that I was like, ooh, that looked like that could have been interesting if Oklahoma State made a play on it. But honestly, he was once again super efficient with everything that he did. And, I kind of felt like the announcers on the ESPN2 broadcast were a little goofy. For what? Because usually I sync up the radio broadcast with the television so I can listen to Dan and now Tony Pike and listen to that and watch the game on TV. But for once, I'm like, let's stick with ESPN. Let's see how this sounds. They were talking about a whole bunch of stuff on repeat, but one of the things they did keep mentioning was, can Brendan Sorsby enter his name into the Heisman race? And while I don't think he'll ever get the consideration he fully deserves, he can certainly be in the conversation. Is he going to be a finalist heading to New York? Probably not. But he's going to be a guy that other people around the country are like, oh, that dude's pretty good. And we're seeing it week in and week out at this point. I know that last year in 2024, early on in the season, it felt that way. And then he sort of disappeared in the second half. We're hitting that point where it's like, okay, Brendan, what are you going to do from this point? I don't feel like we're going to see that. I think we're just going to continue to see this Brendan Sorsby, who just carved up Oklahoma State, and the Brendan Sorsby who carved up Iowa State and carved up Kansas, and made the plays he needed to make against UCF. He wasn't sharp against UCF, but he made more plays than the other guy was ever going to make, Cam Fancher for UCF. So I've been super impressed with him, and I think we will continue to. But look, when it comes to the Bearcats in 2025, you show up for the offense and you stay for the opportunistic defense, because if that opportunistic defense can become a thing, and it's not just Oklahoma State stinks, so that's why that happened. If they can do that in the coming weeks, this team's got a real shot at the Big 12 championship. And I say that with full confidence. Make sure you follow us each and every day. We talk about Bearcats football, basketball, and everything in between, all about UC athletics right here on Locked On Bearcats. Hit that subscribe button. We'll be back with you on Monday. Going to take a deeper look at this, maybe see if I can clip up some post-game comments and dissect those a little bit. And then also later on in that podcast, we will get into the basketball scrimmage that the Bearcats won over Michigan. It's pretty good to see. That's all coming up on the next Locked On Bearcats podcast. Make sure you join us then. Hit that subscribe button. Become an everydayer of Locked On Bearcats, because we will be with you every single day. So we're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team, your Bearcats, every single day.